Hey there, Innovation Champions. Melissa Dinwiddie here. Last week at a conference in DC, I heard a story that stopped me in my tracks. It was one of those moments that makes you realize how much you don't know about the world around you. A delegate from Yellowstone was sharing an experience from a community gathering back home. So let me paint the picture for you. This is what she described for me. So picture this gorgeous gathering hall filled with people from across the region. The energy is really high. Everyone's connecting. And then someone decides to cap off the event with what seemed like the really perfect unifying moment, a rousing rendition of "This land is your land, this land is my land." And the whole crowd joined in and voices are rising together. That familiar melody filling the space. It felt really inspiring and patriotic and unifying. But then something happened that made this delegate's stomach drop. One by one, the Indigenous folks in the crowd started getting up out of their seats and walking out. And at first she thought, maybe it was a coincidence, maybe they had places to be. But as more people left, all of them Indigenous folks, it became clear that this wasn't about logistics. And as she shared this story with me, I could see how much it had affected her. And honestly, I have been thinking about this ever since. Whew. And here's what I learned. While those lyrics, "This land is your land, this land is my land," those lyrics might sound like a really beautiful vision of collective ownership to a lot of us, they tell a completely different story to Indigenous communities. For people whose ancestors had this land taken by force from them, whose families were subjected to broken treaties and forced removals, like the Trail of Tears, whose sacred sites are still being exploited for resource extraction. Hearing that song, hearing "This land was made for you and me," that does not feel unifying. It feels like erasure, because the song assumes what historians call terra nullius. That's the idea that the land was empty. It was empty land. It was nobody's land. It was just waiting to be claimed. And it operates within this settler colonial framework that treats the current political structure as a starting point, totally ignoring the sovereignty that existed here for thousands of years. Now, I want to be clear. Woody Guthrie wrote the song actually as a protest against inequality. It was actually his response to "God Bless America." And he was trying to challenge the status quo. So his intentions were actually really good, but impact matters more than intent. We have to keep that in mind. And as I listened to the story, I could not help thinking about how this shows up in innovation. How often do we create solutions or strategies or even company cultures that feel inclusive to us, but completely miss the mark for other people? How often do we build our "this land is your land" moments without even realizing that we're creating terra nullius in our organizations? This connects directly to something that I see all the time in my work with tech companies. Teams will spend months developing what they think is a really brilliant innovation, only to discover that it completely misses the needs of their actual users, Or worse, it actively excludes entire communities that they never even considered. This is where my Create the Impossible framework becomes really crucial, but with a twist that I want to explore today. So usually when I talk about this first step of my framework, play hard, I usually focus on embracing curiosity and joy in our creative process. But today I want to add another layer. Playing hard means being curious about perspectives that aren't like your own perspective. It means asking questions that might be kind of uncomfortable. So at that gathering, real play hard would have meant someone asking, hey, wait a second, how might this song land with everyone in the room before launching into it? And the second step, make crap, typically means giving ourselves permission to create imperfect first drafts. But in the context of inclusion, it means acknowledging that our first attempts at inclusive innovation, they're probably going to be clunky, they're probably going to be incomplete, and that's okay. The key is starting somewhere and being willing to iterate. So if the organizers at that community gathering had approached that closing moment with a make crap mindset, they might have said, hey, let's try this. And if it doesn't land well, we'll learn and do better next time. The third step of my framework, learn fast, becomes about rapid iteration based on feedback from diverse voices. Not just learning from people who look and think like us, but actively seeking out perspectives that challenge our assumptions. So those Indigenous folks walking out, that's feedback, that's data, that's an opportunity to learn fast if we're paying attention. Here's what I find really fascinating about the situation that the Yellowstone delegate described. That room was full of good people with good intentions. Everyone wanted unity. Everyone wanted to create a positive experience. But good intentions without diverse perspectives often create innovations that end up excluding the very people that we think we're helping. And I see this pattern everywhere in tech. Teams of really brilliant people who all come from really similar backgrounds and working on with the best of intentions, creating products that work really beautifully for people like them, and completely miss the mark for everyone else. Now, the solution isn't to feel guilty about this. The solution is to build systems that actively bring different perspectives into our innovation process from the very beginning. So, here are 3 questions that I now ask myself and encourage my clients to ask throughout any innovation process. First, who isn't in the room? Before we start singing, "This land is your land," and get that, response that we don't want, who are we not hearing from? Whose voices are not represented in our planning and our brainstorming and our decision making? Second, what assumptions are we making? Now, this is always a hard one because we make assumptions because we don't realize that we're making assumptions. But this is what we need to ask and what we need to really dig into. What are we treating as universal truths that might actually be specific to our particular experience? What terra nullius moments might we be creating? And third, how might this land differently? For every innovation, every strategy, every team gathering, how might this be received by people who don't share our background, our context, our story. Here's what I've learned in my work. When you start building inclusion into your innovation process, something kind of magical happens. You don't just create better products for underrepresented communities, you actually create better products for everyone. So a great example of this is the curb cut effect. So curb cuts were originally designed for wheelchair accessibility, but they ended up helping a lot of people. They ended up helping parents with strollers, delivery workers with dollies, travelers with suitcases, and basically anyone who's ever walked down a sidewalk. When we innovate with diverse perspectives from the start, we don't just expand our market, we uncover possibilities that we never would have imagined. So here's my challenge for you this week. Look at whatever innovation challenge you're currently working on and ask yourself those 3 questions. Who isn't in the room? What assumptions are you making? How might this land differently for different communities? And then, and this is the crucial part, actually seek out those missing perspectives. Don't just imagine what they might say, because you're never going to be able to do that. Find ways to include those real voices in your process. So if you're working on a new product feature, talk to users who don't look like your typical customer. If you're planning a team initiative, check in with the people who usually stay quiet in meetings. If you're designing a company policy, consider how it might affect someone whose life circumstances are really different from yours. Remember, creating the impossible isn't just about pushing the boundaries of what we think is technically feasible. Sometimes it's about pushing the boundaries of who we think our innovations are for. Now, I'll be honest, I cannot unlearn what I learned from that delegate story. And I'm really grateful for that, because now I have a lens that I did not have before. I have a way of seeing that makes me a better innovation strategist, a better colleague, and hopefully a better human. That moment of discomfort when she described watching those delegates walk out, that is where growth lives. That is where real innovation begins, when we're willing to sit with the discomfort of realizing that our good intentions might not be enough. The most powerful innovations happen when we embrace diverse perspectives, not as a nice to have, but as the secret ingredient that transforms good ideas into breakthroughs that actually serve the world. Ready to unlock your team's full innovation potential through inclusive practices? Click the link in the description to book a complimentary innovation strategy session. Let's explore how the Create the Impossible framework can help you transform your approach to innovation by actively embracing diverse perspectives and building truly inclusive development processes. If you found these insights about innovation through inclusion valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of innovation champions. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a new strategy for driving creativity and innovation in your work. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this topic. What's one assumption about your current innovation process that you're now questioning? Or have you experienced a moment where diverse perspectives completely changed your approach to a challenge? Share your insights in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay playful, and keep creating the impossible. See you next time. Ciao.